Beth Pylan, and today I'm going to be sharing the story of the time I was in Theatre UIL one-act play. I do not have my target audience of high school theater kids in front of me, so I plan on taking age, culture, and language into account to address everyone's needs and using those needs to connect the story. So on to the story, I guess. During the process of Theatre UIL, I hated Louis de Ramont with a passion. But at the end, I grew to love him and my time in UIL. UIL was extremely challenging, but it was worth the reward of being with my friends and making it to the bi-district level. It all started my senior year. I was told I was going to be on UIL. I had been warned by my best friend that UIL was filled with cliques and judgmental people, and I should stay away. I, however, had no say in the matter. I was placed in the class by my theater teacher. At first, I was worried because I knew about the theater cliques, and I also knew I would not be in one. However, I was not alone. I had my friend of 4 years in the class with me. I could understand where my friend was coming from, and I could see the groups within the class. I knew everyone in the class, as I was in theater the year before on all 3 shows, and knew about the favoritism shown to certain students. Everything actually started off calm until we got our script, Shipwrecked, The Amazing Adventures of Louis de Ramont, as told by himself. Everything then became chaotic. Actors had to learn their lines exactly. The script had to be cut for time restraints. Text had to make props that could be reused throughout the show. Actors also had to learn instruments to make the audience more immersed. I was in charge of the left side props, meaning I had to make sure actors could get to the props safely and quickly while in the dark. I was also in charge of the thunder sheet during the storm scene. I also had to set up the lights, the sound, and the tape for the stage in under 5 minutes. Of course, I had help with my other techs, but there were only 5 of us. The tape had to be set so the actors knew where to put the pillars, as well as the barrels that were used throughout. I had to help paint those barrels to look more rustic and damaged. I also had to make newspaper props and shadow puppet cutouts that would be used later. There was a lot of yelling due to things not being perfect, which it had to be. As time went on, I began to hate Louis de Ramont, as did all the cast. With late nights and our Saturdays completely gone, all we had was UIL. Everyone was stressed and beyond tired as we had to work late nights. Finally, we got to our first performance. We were all frantic, making sure everything was in place and that nothing was left behind. Actors were in charge of their props, costume, makeup, and hair. I and other crew members were to make sure everything on the checklist was there, and that the stage was taped off properly. When it was our turn, we carried out all our props. I was in charge of setting up the lights and the pillars. I also had to lay the thunder sheets used later in the play. I had to make sure the props were out of the walkway and were also easily accessible. I then had to tape down the cords for the lights so no one tripped in the dark. Eventually, our time for setup was over, and it was time to begin. The scene opened with our tallest actor on a box, playing Louis, and he was playing the violin. He began to introduce himself and started telling the story of when he was a young boy. We see Louis grow up and grow to dislike the indoors and longing for adventure. He finally left his mother's home with only his mother's savings, which was soon robbed from him. A thunderstorm soon appears, which is where I make my debut, playing the thunder sheet off stage. We are then introduced to Captain Jensen, and Louis agrees to join our crew on the Wonder World. It is there where he meets the dog Bruno, who becomes a beloved part of the play. Bruno is played by another actor, who has to run around on all fours all across the stage. The captain journeys to the Great Barrier Reef to collect pearls with Louis, and him and the crew are caught in a whirlpool. Captain Jensen, too blinded by greed and her search for more pearls, doesn't see the storm gathering. I again appear with the thunder sheet, again off stage. The crew, thinking they are out of the storm, soon realizes they are in the eye of it. During this, Captain Jensen falls overboard and is never seen again. Louis and Bruno are now lost at sea, floating on the wreckage. Louis washes ashore on an island, where he finds all the pearls have washed up with him. Louis is stranded there for months with only Bruno, until he spots the Aborigines. At this point, we have actors playing the didgeridoo to signify a change in the chapter. There, Louis meets his future wife, Yamba, her father, Gunda, and her brother, Bobo. Louis begins to teach Yamba English, and soon she tells him they are lost and want to return home. They make a boat out of the wreckage and set shore for their home. It is there that they meet their old tribe, and after they get into a little disagreement, they are soon accepted. Louis and Yamba soon get married and have 2 daughters. As the years go by, Bruno gets old and one day never wakes up. Seeing this actually play out brought tears to my eyes. Bruno was beloved. After this, Louis decides he must return home. He offers to take his wife, kids, and grandchildren, but they refuse and say they need to stay. They belong there. He soon starts walking through the outback, without food or water. There, he meets some prospectors, who tell him it's been 30 years since he set sail. They take him to Brisbane so he can hop a freighter to England. When he sees London, he realizes it is now a smog-filled mess, as the Industrial Revolution has begun while he was away. He soon finds his mother, who does not believe that he's Louis de Ramont. But after he tells his story, she believes him and sends him to publish a story in Wide World magazine. After some convincing, the publisher agrees to publish his story, and his story is soon sold by the dozen, giving him thousands of dollars. Soon, he is invited by Queen Victoria to speak at the Royal Geographic Society. It is there that experts in all fields begin to discredit his story, and it is published that he is a fraud. Soon, he is forgotten. He ends with this: "What does a man leave behind but his name and the stories he has told? Believe what you will about me, but seeing is believing, is it not?" Louis then looks off, and he can see his wife and girls as the lights fade out. Finally, a violin pluck is heard, ending the show. This went on for weeks, and we had 4 competitions in total. This all ended, however, when we got to By District. We gave our all in this performance, but we ended up in last place. A lot of us are upset, and I remember crying on the bus back home, and our lead actor telling me not to worry about it, how we did the best we could. When we got back to school, I knew we would not do the play again, at least not this year. But I realized how close we had all grown. We had spent countless hours together, and the man I once hated, I actually grew to like, and it grew us closer together. Of course, we were upset that we lost, but we had fun throughout all the stress that was Shipwrecked. So, thank you for listening.